Hello everyone and welcome to the Omega Metroid podcast. My name is Andy Spiteri, joined as always by Dakota Lasky. Dak, how are you, my friend?
I'm doing good, dude. I'm doing good. We are within reach of Metroid Dread, so how could I not be doing fantastic, man? How you doing?
I'm doing great, and I'm doing great because I got a nice little birthday present on Friday, October 1st. You heard me talking about it last week, but the Samus Chill album finally dropped, and we have a special guest with us today. The producer and artist of the album, Tune In with Chewie, is with us right now. Chewie, how you doing, man? Thanks for coming on the show.
Thanks for having me, man. I'm doing pretty good. I'm just super stoked that the album's finally out. I've been holding this information in for I want to say well over a year now. So just the fact that it's out now, it's like, I can finally tell everyone about it. So yeah.
So first of all, congratulations on the release. But I gotta tell you, man, I really love Zelda and Chill and Pokemon and Chill and Mario and Chill, and I was like, God, they gotta make a Metroid and Chill. Surely someone's got to make this. So I love that you stepped up to the plate and finally made it. So yeah, I've listened to the album a ton of times. It's awesome, and again, congratulations on the release.
Thank you so much.
So we are going to be talking about kind of our final hopes for Metroid Dread. We're in the home stretch. We're almost there. We are mere days away by the time that you guys are listening to it. But before we get there, I want to talk to Chewie a little bit about Samus and Chill and all of the work that went into that. So Chewie, maybe I'll just kind of let the mic be open to you. You can kind of give us your origin story. How did you get into music, and when did you get into Metroid, and then how did Samus and Chill kind of originate and then become the finished product that we got. So, take it away. Let everybody know kind of who you are and what you're all about.
Yeah, so I'll try to keep it brief because I've told this story many times in the past before. But basically, I was always into film music and video game music since I was a child. And, just growing up, I knew that I wanted to do something in music. I started out playing guitar, back in high school. And I didn't really have a direction as to which part in the music industry I wanted to be a part of, but I knew that I wanted to be a part of the music industry, so I just went to school for guitar performance, and then my composition professor one day told me, hey, you should really start looking into film scoring. So I was like, that kind of makes sense, I've always been interested in that stuff, so I went to a university to study that. I studied jazz arranging and all that stuff, and right after my university, I started, messing around with arrangements, remixes. The first remix I actually did, even before I think I was still in university when I was doing this. I went and I did an arrangement of Metroid, of all of them. I actually sent it out to OC Remix. I don't know if you guys ever heard of them before, but really well known. Yeah,
definitely.
Yeah, for sure. Everyone knows about them. This was back in 2009 or 2010, I want to say. And of course, my remix got rejected because I was still kind of learning production, all that stuff. And they gave me feedback, which was really nice, but I never really fixed it. I just I'll just continue going on in my life. But years later, I was all right, let me try this thing out once more. And I started Tuning with Chewie, which was a side project. I was doing the film scoring stuff, and I wanted an outlet to kind of explore different genres of music, because what I was doing mainly at the time was orchestral music, that kind of thing that goes with film scoring, and I wanted to explore different genres. And I was really into lo-fi and electronic back then. I would listen to the music, but I never really took the time to actually write any of that type of stuff. So I used it as an opportunity to kind of, explore different genres and get better at my production and etc. So I started doing that, and I reached out to DJ Cutman. I discovered Game Chops back in 2017, and I think it was November. That's when I released my first lo-fi track, and I actually wasn't expecting him to reply. I tweeted at him, and he actually took the time to record on his phone him listening to the track and hitting follow on Spotify, which I thought was really, I was oh my gosh, he didn't actually have to do that. He could have just, responded back, say, oh yeah, cool, I'll add it to my playlist or something. But the fact that he, took the time to do that, I thought that was really awesome. And that really made a really good first impression on my part. So we just kept in touch over the years. And I think it was back in it was last year, Game Shots had released an album. I forget the name of the album, but I direct messaged DJ Cutman, and I congratulated him on the album. And then I just mentioned like, hey, like if you ever want to do a collaboration like in the future, let me know. And then of course he surprised me yet again when he said like that he'd be down, and then if I was interested in doing an and Chill album. And I immediately knew I wanted to do a Metroid and Chill. So I started doing the Metroid album, I want to say it was like April of last year. And I finished around late July. And then it was just a matter of like fine-tuning things. And, Game Shops had already planned out the entire year, so we couldn't release it last year. And then it was just a coincidence that, around E3, I think it was E3 when Nintendo announced Metroid Dread. And it was like, oh, this is perfect. We can release it like 1 week before the game comes out. So we just, we're holding out on the album, and, it finally dropped. So that's basically it in a nutshell.
That was pretty good timing.
Yeah, it was perfect timing.
I don't know. DJ Cutman sounds like such a nice dude. If you ever talk to him, thank him for me for like the stupid amount of hours I spend listening to Radio Cutman.
I'm sure he'll hear this podcast. So yeah.
All right, shout out to you, Cutman. All right, so I have a question for you.
Yeah.
So you said like you wanted to go to Metroid right away. You knew that was the one that you wanted to do.
Mm-hmm.
How did you go about like narrowing down the tracks that you were gonna pick and put on this album? Because I'm like, there's so much, right? Like, was there any that you just like absolutely knew like this has to be on, or like were any kind of I don't know, maybe surprise picks to you, or like how did that process look like?
Yeah, it was actually pretty straightforward. Mainly because I only had a limited amount of tracks that I can choose from, and that was due to legal reasons. We can't actually, we can't like do any remixes and like sell it anywhere unless the album or the tracks have been released on the U.S. like officially. So DJ Cutman found an album. I think it was released when Samus Returns came out. I can't remember the name of the album, but it had like somewhere around like 20 to 28 tracks, something like that. So I basically had that list to choose from. Unfortunately, I couldn't do some of the more popular ones. I would have loved to, but I just couldn't do it for legal reasons. So that was like the main thing. And then so I knew like some of them that I wanted to do for sure, like Ridley or the theme of Samus, like for sure those were no-brainers. Some of the other ones were super, super challenging. Like I say like, out of all the arrangements I've done, this album was really, really challenging. And that's because, when you think of Metro, you don't really think chill, right? It's anything but chill. It's more atmospheric. There's a lot of tension. It's very moody. I mean, of course, there are certain tracks that lend themselves really well to chill, but for the majority of them, it's really tense. So trying to make it chill was an extreme challenge for sure. And I had to spend like couple of days, a week, and some of them like Ridley, I think I spent like an entire week just messing around on the piano until I found something I really, really liked. And the same thing, I think like the hardest one for sure was Sector 1. That one was super, super challenging. But yeah, it was just, I narrowed down my list to 12. I think originally I had like somewhere around like 13 or 14. But the last two, I just felt they weren't hitting the vibe just right, or conceptually didn't make sense. So, that's how I selected my 12 tracks.
That's very interesting. I never knew that. And actually, it's funny you say Sector 1, because I think I was going between Sector 1 and The Crash Ship is like my go-tos on the album.
Nice,
I think Sector 1, though, because that one was is like very like creepy but chill. It's kind of like you said, it's a weird dichotomy there. So I have another question for you, actually, that I wanted to ask, and maybe this is kind of the same thing where like legal was involved, but with all the other Game Shop albums, you've seen like Mario and Chill, Zelda and Chill, Pokemon and Chill, and this one is named Samus and Chill instead of Metroid and Chill. Was there any like rhyme or reason to that?
No, I think DJ Cutman just kind of chose that because it sounded better, and also it might have just been something. Might have something to do with the legal side as well. Actually having like the word Metroid in the title of the album might have caused some legal problems. Yeah.
So I'm gonna sound kind of like a putz because I don't know a whole lot about music, but I'm gonna try and ask this anyways. So I really like in lo-fi music when like a track it's like remade and built from the ground up versus like the original track but with a drum beat, which is something that obviously you took the time and did on Samus Chill. Is this like pretty important to you? Because I've seen a lot of tracks that are the original track and they have a drum beat and they're okay, but like when it's remade kind of like it was in this album, I feel like it just takes it to another level.
Yes, that's extremely important to me, and that's one thing that when I started tuning with Chewie, I wanted to make sure that I took the time to actually make everything from scratch, and that's mainly because I'm a composer myself and I like writing my own original material. So if I want to like arrange someone else's music, I want to do it my way, and so that means like doing everything from scratch again, and also taking liberties with the material, like exploring different ideas, that kind of thing. That's one thing that I make sure I do for every single remix that I've done so far. Yeah.
So you mentioned earlier, actually, I should have picked on this when you said it, but you mentioned that the Ridley theme was really challenging, and when I looked, I was kind of surprised to see that the Other M version of Ridley was the theme used, because I think that most people wouldn't have kind of imagined that one, and like it has like the same kind of general I don't know, general beat or rhythm, I guess, as the other Ridley versions, but it is a little bit more distinct. I guess I'm gonna put you on the hot seat. What made you choose that version? And I know my man Dak has some thoughts on Other M. I just wanted to. What do you think of Metroid Other M?
Yeah, no, this was just another instance of this is all I had to work with, basically.
Right. Okay.
Yeah. So it was just, it came down to that. And as far as what I think about Other M, I'm the same as everyone else. I was just like overall pretty disappointed with the game. I didn't think it was like terrible, but it was definitely the weaker one out of the Metroid series so far.
Okay, that's fair. I'm gonna keep you in the hot seat, if I may. So let's say that you could do like any track. There's no legal in the way. What track would you love to do? And I guess like what I'm really asking is just like, what's your favorite tunes in the Metroid series?
Yeah, I think for sure Vandrana Drifts. I think everyone has been asking about that one. That one's like, I even saw in some of the comments in the YouTube comments like, oh, why didn't you do that track? It's like, oh, believe me, I wanted to do that track too, but I just couldn't do it. And also the the main theme for the original Metroid, the opening title music, I think that one's very iconic too. I forget the name of the track, but it comes out in Return of Samus. It's like the overworld
like
theme.
The surface theme.
Yeah. I really love that one. Those three for sure are like my top ones that I'll definitely do if it's possible.
Theme.
Yeah.
All right. So I guess let's just fan out for a second here. You said that back at E3 when Metroid Dread was announced, you were just like, oh, this is perfect. Like I'm going to release my album like kind of in and around Metroid Dread. I want to ask Chewie, the Metroid fan, what your reaction was to just seeing Metroid Dread announced, because Dak and I lost our minds, because like we've been following this since like Metroid Dread was a DS game. So like, what was that like for you, just as a fan, just watching that seeing that, like, oh my god?
Yeah, I was like, I was super surprised because I was actually expecting Nintendo to announce like a Prime Trilogy re-release. I was kind of hoping that they announced something like that, but just the fact that they announced like a whole new game, I was like, oh my gosh, like that's amazing. And I remember I was texting a few of my brothers, like, and my brother's like, oh, have you checked out the Metroid Dread trailer? And yeah, I lost my mind because here I was expecting like a re-release of something else, but we get an entirely new thing.
Yeah, that I think that maybe was like the best moment in the history of the Metroid series. That
oh yeah, for sure.
Okay, well we're almost going to talk about some Metroid Dread, but first before we get there, I just got to ask quickly. You have a vinyl campaign for Samus Chill, right? Do you want to tell everybody kind of about that and what where they can go to get that?
Yeah. I mean, we already got funded, which was insane to begin with.
I think like 350% or something like that.
Yeah,
right?
last I checked, it was like 450, something like that.
Oof.
Yeah, it just skyrocketed the past few days. But yeah, people can go check it out on Game Chop's Bandcamp. site. I forget the exact URL. It's like,
we'll find the link, and we'll throw it in the episode notes for everybody that wants to check it out.
Yeah, and there's still time to get it. I think there's like 25 days left. It's like a 30-day campaign thing. As I understand it, well, you can get the vinyls later next year. I think like another distributor is going to do it, but if you want it like immediately, you had to go through the campaign to get it.
Awesome. Okay, last question before we jump in and we talk about some hopes for what we want in Metroid Dread. And I don't know if you can talk about this. Maybe you don't want to yet. But Samus Chill just dropped. Man, it just dropped like 3 days ago. But of course, the question is, what's next? What are your future plans? Any future albums? You taking some time off? What is next for you, my friend?
So I have some ideas like for albums that I can do with Game Chops. I have to talk to DJ Cutman about that. But also, I just recently finished another arrangement. It was for Resident Evil. So I'm gonna put that out probably next month. I wanted to do it for Halloween, but I don't know. I just kind of feel like I should probably just sit back a little bit and just kind of let Samus and Chill ride for the whole entire month, and then I'll start focusing again on releasing singles. November and so on. But yeah, I'm thinking maybe another and Chill album like in the future. As to what game, I have no idea yet, but I'll think about it. But yeah, I definitely still have some stuff planned for the remainder of the year.
I'm looking forward to what is next, my friend. Actually, I'm like looking forward to Resident Evil lo-fi. I can't think of like I can't think of what tune it could be. So I don't even want to know.
I'll just I'll leave it as a surprise.
Yeah, as a nice Halloween surprise. All right. Let's shift gears. Thank you for giving us the background on Samus Chill. Everybody listening, dude, you got to check out this album. It's super relaxing. I listen to this kind of music all the time at work, and to hear like Metroid finally get the and Chill treatment for me was like a huge deal, and I love it. And I'm sure that all of you guys listening will love it as well. So make sure that you go check that out. And yeah, we'll have all the links where you can check out the vinyls and stuff in the episode notes. But let's talk about Metroid Dread. We are 4 days away. My God, I've got Friday booked off work. I'm canceling my Thanksgiving plans to stay home and play Metroid Dread. Dak, how you feeling? My God, we're almost there.
Are you really doing that? Are you really canceling your Thanksgiving plans?
Okay, so kind of, sort of. So my sister asked if we could go to her place because she has a baby that is like 5 months old. My nephew's 5 months old, and I said we couldn't, so that they can come here instead. So if they come, then it's not canceled. But if they don't, then I'll just play Metroid Dread.
There you go. You got it all figured out. Yeah, man, I'm super excited. I really can't believe that we're so close to the game actually releasing. We were seeing like posts of like all the billboards and the advertisements for the game, and of course we've seen like I don't know how many Dread reports come out and the trailers and the gameplay. It's all coming together, and yeah, I'm super pumped. I can't wait to play it. I'm excited.
Before we continue here, Chewie, I got a question for you.
Mm-hmm.
How are you on like spoilers for Metroid Dread? Because Dak and I have kind of been over this. We've talked, and we don't really think that they've shown anything spoiler-ish, but we do have a lot of friends that are kind of trying to go into this game as littling or knowing as little as possible about it. And obviously, we're going to talk a little bit about some stuff, but I just want to see what your kind of take is. Have you watched all the trailers and everything like that?
I basically been keeping up with all the trailers, and I watched a couple of videos past couple of weeks about people, or a few days actually, about people just talking about their experience with playing like the first hour or so of the game. And yeah, so I don't mind, basically.
Oh, all right. So there you go. So I feel like we're not going to explicitly talk spoilers, but I mean, some of those cutscenes might come up. So just, be warned if you're one of those guys that's trying to go in completely blind. We might be talking about some things that they've shown in the trailer. So that being said, we've seen a lot of cool things in the trailers. We've seen Kraid, Big Daddy Kraid come back. We've seen a living, breathing Chozo, and he kicks butt, and he's fighting Samus. We've seen the speed booster and the momentum that has. We've seen the Omega cannon. We've seen the Emmys. We've seen a ton of absolutely cool stuff that just looks out of this world, no pun intended. But we want to talk about things that we are really hoping for that we haven't seen, and not necessarily even specifically for the in-game product, but even like surrounding the outside product. So I have a couple things that I'm hoping that Metroid Dread will do, and I've tasked everyone else with kind of getting some ideas, and we asked Twitter as well. So we'll go over them. Dak, I think that you probably have a few here, so maybe you want to kick us off with what you hope to see, and maybe we'll kind of do 1-1-1, and we'll jump back and forth.
Well, I'm going to steal one from you because it was one of mine, and I think you wanted to kind of get a better idea of like how the Federation's going to be involved. And
yes,
that to me is a big thing because we talked about this a lot before Metroid Dread was even officially announced, right? When it was still like a game that doesn't exist as far as we know. And from that like point of view, I've always tried to figure out like, okay, like the end of Fusion, Samus and the Federation are not on great terms. So I'm like wondering how exactly we've gotten to the point where, you know, Samus and the Federation are working together again, and it seems all good. So I'm hoping that's explained at the beginning of the game. I have confidence that the story makes sense in terms of the whole like story, especially coming from Fusion. But the setup of Dread definitely like makes me wonder because like all the Chozo stuff is cool and the Emmy stuff is cool, but you know, in a vacuum. But then I'm like wondering like, okay, like why is Samus even working with the Federation? Like what happened after, like right after Fusion? Because it seems like the game takes place after Fusion, but it doesn't feel like it takes place right after Fusion, if that makes sense. I don't know. That's kind of like the vibe I've gotten. So yeah. I'm wondering what happened like immediately after Fusion. I'm hoping the game explains that.
Yeah, and to elaborate on that, I was kind of the same way where I was like, you know, we've seen a lot of the Chozo in the trailer, and like the architecture of Metroid Dread is very much like there's old Chozo cities and there's lots of Chozo stuff, but you don't really see the Federation. And the last two games in the 2D series, I'll say last two, I'll lump Other M in there. Those have really focused on the Galactic Federation and not the Chozo really at all. So it seems that this is Metroid Dread is much more about the Chozo versus the Federation. And when we left in Fusion, it was kind of implied, as Dax said, that like you got Samus on one side squaring off with the Galactic Federation on the other. So I think that obviously the Federation is going to be involved. They were the ones that sent the Emmys to ZDR. They were the ones that detected that there might be the X parasite. So I think that maybe, and tell me what you guys think of this, maybe a way that we can tie this together is, we've talked about the Dark Chozo, the dude from Samus Returns, who is, in the Chozo memories, leading the pack of warriors. We've talked about him. What if, like, the only thing I can think of that maybe really ties the Federation in with this game in, like, a significant way is if the Dark Chozo and the Federation are potentially working together in some capacity, which I don't think is actually, like, a huge stretch, but I don't know. I just don't want to see the Federation kind of be, like, the background bad guys. I do want that to get a proper payoff.
Yeah, it seems like they were like kind of building up on it in the Metroid franchise. So like there's like an evil side to the Federation, and also I'm just kind of curious to see if there's going to be anything else going on with Adam, because I mean it's been a while since I played Fusion, but I remember like there was like a scene where like Samus or they were having a conversation. She referred to him as Adam, and then his personality changed it back to the person he used to be, right? And so I wonder if they're going to explore that some more in this game as well.
So Adam is definitely coming back. He actually, so it looks like the save stations are quote unquote Adam stations, because like you can go there, save your game, and then talk to Adam if you want. I think that's what they're doing, right?
Yeah, but just the personality.
I get what Cherry's trying to get at, because it does kind of like, I'm wondering if that's going to like go forward with maybe Adam's connection with like the bad Federation characters as well, and then if he's going to actually remember more of maybe his past too. I don't know. I do kind of get vibes that he's like, from the very little we've seen, it doesn't seem like he like has too much of a difference from just being kind of like an AI. And so, like, I'm kind of wondering how it's going to go in that direction. So yeah, I definitely agree. I would like to see more of like how Adam's character actually develops on its own, and hopefully is not just relegated to like being, a voice that Samus is talked at,
Can you imagine Adam, like his AI gets downloaded into an Emmy? How awesome would that
that'd
be?
Yeah, that'd be
See,
pretty
everyone
crazy.
thinks it's going to be Redley Emmy or something, but it's actually the Adam Emmy that we have to worry about. That would actually be crazy.
That'd be pretty cool.
Yeah, and before we move on, I think your point to like the Federation and the Dark Chozo working together is definitely not that like off at all. That could definitely happen. And if anything, maybe they're not even necessarily working together, but maybe the Federation knows what like the Dark Chozo are capable of for some reason, and we kind of figure out what that reason is, right? And like
Right.
I've been also thinking that maybe Samus gets kind of like pardoned for some reason at the beginning of Dread for like what happened in Fusion, and they're like, hey, like we really need your help on this. Like we'll pardon you, but you have to help us. Maybe maybe that's why she's going to ZDR in the first place. But again, it doesn't really feel like that's the case because it just feels like she's taking a bounty and working another mission as if nothing's happened. So I don't know. I don't know how to perceive what we've seen so far, and it's hard because a lot of it's out of context. But at the same time, we've seen a good portion of like the beginning of the game. Not a good portion, but I would say a decent amount to come to some conclusions. So I don't know. I'm wondering how they're gonna develop like not only in terms of the Federation, in terms of Adam, in terms of all that stuff from Fusion, because it is clearly a sequel to Fusion, but there are a lot of elements from Fusion that don't seem to like there seems to be a gap between what happened in Fusion and then what we're seeing so far in Dread.
Yeah, I mean, it's kind of in that weird spot where like it's a sequel to Fusion, but it's also in a much other different way a sequel to Samus Returns and everything that game set up too. So
Yeah.
kind of a weird spot, but let's move on. So I'm gonna go, and then Chewie will get a hope from you. But one of my other hopes, and I think that this one was like almost confirmed, but with Kraid coming back, I think we were talking on the podcast a couple weeks ago, Dak, and I was like, dude, they got to bring back Dragon from Super Metroid, and I think that we have more or less confirmed that he is back in this game. Now, who knows if you actually fight him or not, or if it was just kind of an Easter egg in the background, but there was kind of a silhouette in the back that looked very much like Dragon, and he was in one of those big test tubes. So I really hope that he comes back, and I hope that he's a boss battle, and I hope that they like kind of lean into like maybe you can fight him after you get the grapple, and like you can do some crazy things, and like the actual legitimate way to beat him is to like grapple onto, I don't know, some exposed electrical wires or something like that. I think that would be like kind of fun, and like to use that gimmick and like actually make it a part of how to beat him instead of kind of like the cheap and easy way to beat Dragon. And if Dragon's coming back and Kraid is coming back, and we probably think Ridley's going to be here in some form or fashion, even if he's just an Emmy. I mean, we go for the whole Monty, bring back Fantoon. This guy deserves another shot. He was great in Other M, arguably the best part about Other M. So yeah, I think that if they're bringing back 3 of the 4, man, just make it 4 of the 4.
Yeah, maybe. I that's this remains, like you said, remains to be seen if Dragon's really like actually in the game or not, just like an Easter egg in the background. I mean, I'm not. First of all, I'm not surprised if Mercury Steam goes all the way and just starts bringing back a bunch of bosses, because the one Metroid game they've done previously that didn't even have Ridley in it, like they went out of their way to like bring Ridley back for this end of game boss fight. So if any like developer working on a Metroid game is going to bring back characters for the sake of bringing back characters, whether it makes sense or not, like I feel like Mercury Steam would probably be that developer. That said, I would like more bosses. I don't know if we need every like Super Metroid boss to come back in some way, shape, or form. Personally, I don't care about Dragon. And Fantoon's cool, but I don't need him necessarily back either. I think Kraid and Ridley showing up is because I'm almost expecting Mother Brain to show up at this point, and I'm like, I want new stuff, and I'm really excited to see like the Chozo and them having their own actual major characters and enemies and bosses, because that's a really nice change of pace. We haven't seen like much of that since like Metroid Prime in terms of the Chozo being enemies, of course. That said, yeah, I don't want it to be like too many enemies that are like ones we've seen before. I really want some more. But if they have a lot of new stuff, then they can make those older bosses work too. And like you said, Fantoon was really cool in both of their appearances. So I'm down for it. I just do want to see a good amount of new stuff and not necessarily just like bringing back old bosses.
I agree with you 100%. that was actually one of my hopes, is that we get a whole bunch of new enemies and bosses. I do like maybe the idea of Raygon coming back, but one of my biggest hopes is that they don't find some way to yet again bring Ridley back. I mean, as much as I love Ridley, I think, I mean, it's great that we're getting some of these other ones, but I think him coming back all the time is like, all right, how many times is this guy gonna keep coming back to life? You know what I mean? Like,
I will say,
yeah.
I'll draw the line at Ridley as characters. I don't, I want him to come back. Everyone else, but he's I'll make an exception for him being a major Ridley fan. But I agree otherwise.
Yeah, I mean, let's just talk about it now. I was gonna go to Twitter after, but one of the let me pull up who said it. I think it was Tony. Lower Legend said he wants Ridley in some form, and I think that that's the key word, is in some form. And I think that all of us are kind of thinking that maybe there's going to be an Emmy Ridley. I think that makes a lot of sense.
It does, yeah.
And that would be cool. And that would be a good way to bring back Ridley without like bringing back Ridley. So I'm hoping that is pretty much the direction that they take. Or maybe the X is there and they have like a Ridley clone, or like use a device like that to bring Ridley back. And you don't necessarily have to have it be like quote unquote the OG Ridley.
I think the actual Ridley being dead, like permadead since Super, I think is fine. A character that was known for coming back all the time is actually finally dead, and you kind of go on from there. I think it's really cool in terms of his character, and you can obviously bring him back in his image in many different ways. Robots and clones and this and that. I always thought a really cool idea would be like, the X continuing to clone, or, someone continuing to clone Ridley. And you know how in Fusion, the Ridley clone is like an exaggerated version of Ridley, right? Like its head's too big for its body, its wings are really small, its claws are like all big, and, it looks all weird and deformed. And I feel like the more it would get cloned, the more deformed and weird it would look. And like maybe like iterations of that would be really cool to explore. I also really think like maybe a Chozo Ridley, I don't know, a Ridley mixed with one of their Chozo warriors or soldiers would probably be really sick. And I feel like maybe that's the loop we're going to get thrown for, where we're all expecting the Ridley Emmy, but we get like the Chozo Ridley instead. And we find out, I think we even talked about this on the show, maybe like the Chozo created Ridley, and we'll find out that, Chozo just created everything. Like everything that exists in the universe, the Chozo created it, and we're going to find that out. But yeah, I think Ridley coming back is probably inevitable, but it won't be the actual Ridley. But then again, if it was, and they're just like, oh yeah, we actually just, saved some Ridley DNA, and it's still, or like we resuscitated Ridley from like his toenail, and it's still him, like I feel like that could probably happen, though I wouldn't like that. I'd rather it be just a Ridley robot or Ridley clone, like not the real Ridley, but something else. It's fine. As long as it looks fine, the design makes sense and all that. So, yeah, I think we're going to find out. Maybe we're going to find out that it's an Adam Ridley, and, like, they upload Adam to a Ridley Emmy body, and you end up fighting Adam. So who knows? Who knows what could happen?
You really think Adam's going for the heel turn in this game?
I don't know.
All, but I could get.
I'm just thinking of all the things that could happen in a twist like maneuver, because we've just come to many conclusions like, oh, Ridley Emmy seems, likely, et cetera, like that kind of stuff. I'm like, what else could happen that maybe we haven't thought of? And I'm thinking like, I wonder if Adam somehow like works his way into another like into the ZDR system more, and like maybe takes control of stuff somehow. Not necessarily turning heel, but moving out of his like kind of stationary orb on a wall form.
I ain't mad at that. All right, Chewie, what is something that you are hoping to see in Metroid Dread?
Oh, I think I covered it earlier, but I want to see a bunch of new enemies, new bosses. Like, I don't want to see a lot of the same repeat bosses over and over again. I mean, Ridley, like if it does come back, then yeah, I think it's a great idea to kind of have him like an Emmy form, or like a cool version that looks different, but you fight it differently than what you typically fight Ridley as. Something like that would be pretty cool, and just a bunch of new power-ups. I want to see what kind of creative ideas they take with some of Samus's power-ups for sure.
Fair enough. All right, Dak, what hit us with your next one here?
Yeah, I mean, we'll just go off what Chewie was saying. I think we've already seen a lot of like cool new power-ups, and I think we're going to see some more. So I definitely agree there. I'm really hoping to see like how like more creative they get with Samus's toolkit, like how they added like the air dash, right? And all these other moves that they like, which changes, and like the slide, even like a basic function like that kind of changes up how you play the game in comparison to other ones, which I'm really looking forward to. So definitely agree there. Aside
And jumping while
Yeah.
while speed boosting too. Sorry to cut you off, but that's like a game changer,
Yes.
especially if there's going to be like intricate Shine Spark puzzles, which I'm imagining that there will be.
One other thing I do want to see, and I know that we have the melee counters, which are kind of like a cinematic, and we have obviously like the dashing counter now too, as an evolution of what we got in Samus Returns. But I would not mind if they brought back the actual finishing moves from Other M, like where you get the full cinematic, you finish off an enemy, and like Samus DDT something or whatever, gives it a Frankensteiner, like, because that I love that, like it just looks awesome, and just go all the way with that. Like I love those kind of cinematic, satisfying moments, even if it is just a button press. It looks cool and makes you feel, awesome, like a badass, and that was one of the few good things about Other M. So I like that it's, found its inspiration, or like rather it's inspired, the melee counter in a way, and it's kind of still lives on, but I wouldn't mind at all if they just went all the way and brought them back outright. Like, let me melee counter, shoot it up a little bit, and then just go for the full finisher. Even if it was like, I don't know, something you can only use every once in a while, I think it'd still be cool, but probably unnecessary.
Chewie, I gotta ask you a question. Are you a wrestling fan?
I haven't been keeping up with wrestling a good amount.
Okay, I was just thinking of him, Chewie, sitting there, just being like, "What are these guys talking about? Heel turns, DDTs? What is going on this show?" Like, but that is neither here nor there. Okay, I've got one, and Chewie, I'll get you to respond to this first, because I'm not sure if you're going to agree with me or not. But I think that one of the weak spots, actually, of Samus Returns was its music. And I think that you had the really awesome Surface theme. I think that you had the really awesome Chozo Laboratory theme. The Proteus Ridley theme was really great. But by and large, for like the first like 3 or 4 areas, you're not really listening to any music. It's just a lot of kind of environmental ambiance, and a lot of the same, like the same music that plays when the Metroids attack. And then you go into the lava areas, and like it starts booming with the lower Norfair music. And to me, I'm looking at the music of that game, and I'm looking at the music of AM2R. And while I love both games to death, that is one area where I think I'm willing to say that I would give the clear advantage to AM2R. So I want the music to, I don't know, like I just put down great music, and I don't want to say that Samus Returns has bad music at all, because it didn't. But I think that it was like one of the weaker aspects in an otherwise amazing Metroid game. So I hope that the music really kind of matches what what we're hoping for, and what looks amazing with everything else in Metroid Dread. And like I hope that we don't need another remix in game of Lower Brinstar or of Norfair, or of like if they're gonna remix something, like let's do some cool remixes, kind of like I think that there's already some remixes from Metroid Fusion in there, so like that's cool. Let's give that a little more time in the sun. Just not kind of the staple Metroid tracks that we've heard remixed kind of again and again. Maybe even some Metroid Prime music remixed in here, kind of to bridge that gap, would be really phenomenal. But
yeah, I think that's one of my hopes
great music.
there. Yeah. I believe that if we are going to get any type of remix for this game, I think it makes sense that they pull from Metroid Fusion more than anything else. And I also agree with you about the Samus Returns. Besides a few noteworthy tracks, it wasn't really well known for its music, right? Like, yeah, but all the other Metro games, and so Metroid Prime, like remixing some of those in this game, that'd be pretty sick. And if they do, I'd love to hear how they do it and how they tackle it. I don't know who the composer is. I don't know if they're bringing back some of the composers that worked on the other Metroids, or if it's new composers. But I'm looking forward to see the kind of remixes and new music they bring to the table.
I just think, like, man, imagine if you had like a frigid area in Metroid Dread, and it's kind of got like, it's almost like a remix of like the Sector 5 theme, but like maybe there's some like hints of Phendrana in there to kind of bridge. I'm always looking for a way to like bridge the 2D series and the Metroid Prime series, and I think that music is like one of the best and easiest ways to do that. So Yeah, I think that would be cool.
No, I definitely agree with the remixing from both Metroid Prime and Metroid Fusion. Not only because they're my two favorite Metroid games, so that works out totally great, but I agree. Like for the reasoning for doing so, like for Metroid Fusion, it makes sense. It's a game that is following Metroid Fusion, and then like you said, having those crossovers from the Prime series, not only really cool, but Mercury Steam's already willing to do that. You can see how like when Ridley came back, he was Proteus Ridley, and that was kind of bridging the gap between him in his Prime appearances and then in his 2D appearances. So I definitely think that'd be really cool. And yeah, I think like the music itself is something I really have no idea how it's really going to sound for Dread. I don't know if I've really gotten a good ear for I guess, the different types of music because it's been kind of in very much in the background or like, we've had like advertising related music over the trailers or whatnot. So I have no idea how Dread's really going to sound. But yeah, I agree otherwise. I think, having a steady mix of like, remixes from Fusion and then like from the 3D Prime game or like from the 3D Metroid games and then new stuff would be like a really great balance and whatnot. Not only because of the different place you're pulling it from, but like now the Chozo are a big part of the story. I think it makes sense to have, Metroid Prime remixes more often. Like a Chozo Ruins remix would be sick somewhere in there.
Oh,
Yeah, definitely.
Like
Yes.
stuff like that where you're really kind of tying in the identities of the major players in this story to like, the music we recognize them by from the previous games. I think that'd be really cool.
One thing too, and actually this kind of ties into Samus and Chill, Chewie, because when I posted the album, I posted in our Discord and I was like, I think that Sector 1 might be my favorite track because like I in the previous episode where we definitively ranked Metroid Fusion, I kind of dumped on the music and just because like the Game Boy
Boo.
Advance, well, just because the Game Boy Advance just wasn't like the music was held back by the hardware. Let's just put it that way.
Yeah,
And so when
I
I was
agree,
listening
I
to
agree.
Sector 1 on your album, I was like, dude, this rocks. Like I would love to hear Metroid Fusion in like a way that the music can be fully realized. So like if they're remaking if Metroid Dread rather is remaking like the Sector 5 theme or like the main kind of like the scary stringy theme that Metroid Fusion had, like that's finally a way to like fully realize that music without kind of the crappy Game Boy Advance sound chips and stuff like that. So that's another big reason that I hope that it pulls from Metroid Fusion in addition to it making like storyline sense.
Yeah, Metroid Dread is kind of playing this balancing game of like adding new stuff, but also the opportunity to bring back old stuff and like remaster it or like do it in HD. That stuff that hasn't, we haven't seen since like the 2000s on the Game Boy Advance, right? Like we get to see like those initial shots of like the fusion suit and like that crisp like HD art and the X Parasites and whatnot, the SIX, and then we got the when Nintendo of America's promoting the game, we see like all this awesome like older Metroid art come back, and it's like and Kraid comes back, and we're seeing Kraid looks awesome in 2D. We haven't seen him look this great in forever, so it's like this hard balancing act of you want to bring back all this older stuff because you get this great opportunity to do it over in like HD and make it look awesome, and it hasn't been done like that in so long. Or at the same time, you also got to bring in new stuff and add to the game in ways that it hasn't been done previously. So, I agree. I definitely want to see some like new remixes and all these things come back. But I'm hoping Metroid Dread hits that balance of old and new, and it's going to be hard.
Yeah, I just one quick wish for the music too is I really hope that Nintendo decides to release an official soundtrack of Metroid Dread because
Yeah.
That'd be amazing. I don't think Nintendo does that very often, which they should because people will buy it like right away. But yeah, that's
Totally.
one of my wish.
Or just put them on
an official
Spotify.
soundtrack. Yeah, exactly.
Like just so easy.
Chewie, you literally like just read my mind. I was literally about to read off. We had a tweet that said, "Not game related, but what about Nintendo finally releasing a soundtrack?"
Yeah.
It's too easy. Come on,
So I don't
just
have to
do
rely
it.
on YouTubers and posting them in big long videos so I can listen to it that way.
Shout out to Gunnar Silva though. You're the real one. This is so easy. It's so easy. Just start like a Nintendo YouTube, like a music channel. Upload your albums, man. Like watch those views rack up. Put ads on them if you really have to. Like it's so easy. I don't get it. But that's neither here nor there. All right. Well, kind of, I'm gonna go off that actually, and because mine's kind of a segue here, and then I'll turn it back over to you, Dak. But one thing that I'm really hoping for Metroid Dread is merch. Like when Samus Returns came out, there was like a puzzle that came out with it, or like there was like the Samus like GameStop bundle bag or whatever, where there was like a backpack and like a stress ball. Did you guys ever see that in your GameStops?
No, I don't think I have.
I don't go to GameStop very often these days, man. So I'm not exactly like walking around and be like, let me look for this Metroid merch. I gotta go. I go on Amazon. I agree though.
Same.
I want to see some of that new stuff. I do remember Samus Returns had the cool 3DS though. It had like the custom 3DS and whatnot. I'm pretty sure. And where's my custom, special edition Metroid Dread Switch? Is there one of those? I'm not sure. I don't think there is.
I still thought that the OLED was literally a Metroid Dread Switch when I first saw it.
I figured it
took
would
me,
make
like,
sense
3
to have
views
one.
to-
Like,
Yeah.
like have a cool Dread themed OLED come out. I mean, I still wouldn't have bought it, but it would have been cool.
I swear I thought
You
they
know-
actually released a Metroid themed one. I guess I was just looking at the wrong thing. Oh,
they
man.
did-
I know
maybe I'm
it
wrong.
looks like one, right? It looks like an Emmy. That when you look at the OLED, it's all gray and metallic, and I was like, oh, that's cool. It was playing Metroid Dread, right? In the initial trailer. But yeah, no, I'm talking like I want puzzles. I want like stuff. I'm a stuff collector for Metroid. So like I'm looking right now. I've got like the Samus arm cannon. I've got the Metroid Prime 3 lunchbox. I've got like just a bunch of goofy stuff like that, and I love that stuff. And I want like more Metroid stuff, and specifically Metroid Dread merch. Like we got the 2 amiibo. That's great. Like what else are we getting here? Like come on, give us something else. Maybe like an Emmy statue or something, kind of like they did with Skull Kid when they made Majora's Mask 3D or something. I don't know, but like stuff. I want merch.
Yeah, I would.
So I'm hoping for that.
I would. I think maybe like a big like map. Like how when you can kind of get like the special editions from like a Zelda
yeah.
game, you get like a big map
Yeah,
of
that'd
the
be
game.
pretty
I don't
sick.
know.
Yeah.
A big map. I mean, I'm thinking also obviously I want the official release of the music too, but the map would be cool. Obviously, like an art book, like a big art book that would be available to everyone. Because I'm pretty sure the special edition of Metroid Dread has it, but I think like just a maybe just like a bigger art book in general for like the series. Like there's so much awesome artwork. I'm not sure if that exists. Is there going to be like an official Metroid Dread guide? That'd be cool. Yeah, I think the statues would be sick, and definitely want some apparel. Let me buy some cool Metroid Dread jeans. Maybe not jeans, maybe shorts or a shirt. I don't know how Metroid Dread jeans would work, but I would try to make it work. Yeah, stuff like that I'd definitely be down for.
Like I'm looking at the Axiom Verge special edition. They got like action figures. They got maps. They got like there's tons
Where's
of.
the
cool
Metroid Dread Lego? We gotta get that.
I don't know, man. We need that like yesterday though.
Yeah.
All right, I took a couple in a row here, Dak. Do you have any others that you were hoping for Metroid Dread?
Well, the one last one I had is I think one of your last ones, and I'm gonna steal it from you. And that's the post game support.
You bastard.
Well, I guess kind of a two-parter because I also think that I'm hoping the game has some solid replayability and that it's not too short. Like I'm hoping it's not a game I just like beat in a day. I have a feeling it probably will be because I could just grind it out for an entire day. But I'm hoping there's some solid replayability. Like after beating the game, maybe there's like an extra mission or a very harder difficulty or something. Beyond that, a boss rush mode, something you unlock for beating the game, and adding post game. Content, post-game support, I don't think is a bad idea, whether they added like some kind of extra smaller mode. I think one of the coolest things they could do is add, another mission or some kind of extra area you explore that had its own, maybe mission in it or some kind of storyline attached to it that maybe led into the next game, like Metroid 6 or whatever. Something like that kind of adds to the replayability of the game overall, especially if it's going to stay single player, which I assume it will. So, I'm wondering like how long is the game actually going to be? Metroid Fusion's my favorite 2D Metroid, but it's not a long game. You can easily beat that in an afternoon. So I'm wondering like I'm sure I'm going to be playing this game and definitely will be playing this game over and over and over again. I'm just wondering like what I'm going to be getting from like beating it besides like okay, I got some cool shots of Samus standing and looking off into the sky, but like am I getting New Game Plus? Am I getting an extra area? I think stuff like that would be really cool. And at the very least, an added DLC, like maybe extra location or mission or campaign or whatever it is that kind of ties in even more so, maybe as like a prologue to the next game, a midpoint between the two after, takes place after the end of Metroid Dread before the next game. That'd be a cool idea.
Yeah,
always
I
down for that
agree.
support.
I agree. Like definitely the DLC. Like if they had like an extra, like you said, like an extra section, like Nintendo has the opportunity to do that now with all their games. Obviously, they couldn't do that back then, but now I feel like they should just go for it. And people will buy it. I'll definitely get it for sure. And a harder difficulty, like for sure, I'll love to see that. And maybe like there'll be like some new armor that you can like chase after, like that's not DLC related, maybe. Hopefully not. But yeah, that'll be pretty sick. I agree 100%.
Yeah, totally. You took the words out of my mouth. I think that like obviously a harder difficulty is something that I want, but I think that will be included like in the base game.
Yeah.
So I don't think that necessarily that is something that needs to be added after. But yeah, like post game content, I feel like that's a really big hope of mine. Like we have never ever had a Metroid game that has had DLC. Correct me if I'm mistaken, but I don't think I am. There's never been any of it. Like the Metroid games come out and there they are. So like anything really, like if Nintendo really wanted to kind of lean into, they could have the speedrun mode, or my goodness, if we're really dreaming big, we've talked about it, they could put a randomizer mode in. That would be super fun, and it would be nice to see that kind of like officially put in by Nintendo and not like a mod somewhere. So that would be awesome. Obviously extra story would be the dream. That would be like the big thing that I would want to see. But just like the principle of something afterwards, like post game content for Metroid Dread, just to ensure that like, because yeah, like you said, like we're gonna beat it. Probably not gonna take that long. Like Samus Returns is it is the biggest 2D Metroid game in terms of the area of the map, and I'm expecting Dread to probably be bigger than Samus Returns. But I mean, that said, I'm gonna beat it, this weekend, right? Like I'm gonna beat it at least once this weekend.
Yeah.
So yeah, something to get us to go back. I do expect there to be multiple difficulty levels, and I expect that to be built into the game. But yeah, just like something to entice people back into Metroid Dread, because I think that like this is the game that like you want to just like make an impression with people, that there's gonna be so many people playing Metroid for the first time, and this actually kind of leads into another wish for Metroid Dread, and I think that I speak for all of us when I say like I hope Metroid Dread does really 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 well in terms of sales, and I think it will.
Yeah.
Because yeah, like this is like the Metroid game, I think, that can really level up the series into that next stratosphere. I mean, it's not gonna do like Animal Crossing numbers or anything like that, but I mean, I think that this Metroid game is gonna do really well, and so you want to make your best impression, put your best foot forward. I think the game is gonna be awesome, but like keep supporting it afterwards with whatever it is that they decide to do. Whether it's story DLC or what. But yeah, that's what I'm like really hoping for with Metroid Dread as well, and yeah, just that it does well, and that a lot of people go ahead and try it that aren't necessarily Metroid fans. And I've talked to a ton of people that have been like, yeah, I've never played Metroid before, but I'm gonna check this out. So I think it's important that this is like the best foot forward.
Yeah, that's my wish. I just really hope that the sales are really good, and Nintendo sees that people really do love this franchise, and hopefully they can make more games more often, like they do with Mario and Zelda. And yeah, I think everyone. I think it's gonna be amazing. So looking forward to it.
I have one more, and I'm kind of stealing it from you. You already said it, but I'm just gonna like go ahead and officially put it down. But I hope that we set up Metroid 6, which seems crazy because we were talking for like years and years and years about Metroid 5. And Metroid 5 is days away, and now we're talking about Metroid 6. But I hope that they set up something for the next game. We've heard, like, time and time again that this is going to be the end of Samus' story. This is going to be the end of the Metroid saga as it pertains to, like, the baby Metroid, Space Pirates, all that stuff. We've talked about it. Don't think Samus is going anywhere. But I do think that, like, they should set up what is next to come. Surely this is not going to be the last Metroid game. And in fact, as we were just talking about, this is probably going to be the Metroid game that is like most people's first Metroid games. Yeah. Like, obviously we have Prime 4 coming, but like, I feel like if this is successful, like another 2D Metroid is inevitable. And, I think that we want to set up that story and kind of hook in all those first time players and make them wonder what's going to come next. So I think that is something that I hope Metroid Dread does, and I feel like I hope that they do it based on item completion, kind of like Metroid Prime 3 did, where if you get 100% of the items, you get the Easter egg with Silex at the end. So I hope that they kind of do the same thing with Metroid Dread and base it on item completion. To really, one of the drawbacks I think of the earlier Metroid games is like they give you the best endings based on time, which encourages you to like really go through the game as fast as you can,
That's
which is
right,
kind of
yeah.
antithetical to what Metroid is about, which is like exploring and stuff like that. So I would have that ending based on item percentage, and I would have that Easter egg ending set up the next game.
Yeah, I think we're. I mean, I think it's a guarantee that it's gonna some way, shape, and form set up the next game, whether it happens in an Easter egg or it happens like in a cutscene or in the game itself. You know, like it's definitely gonna happen. Like they're gonna. This game is certainly like the end of one portion of the story, but it's. I feel like it's almost the beginning of a saga we're just seeing unfold now. And even part of me I almost feel like there's a chance Metroid Prime 4 might take place after Dread somehow, but I doubt it. But I'm feeling like this game 100% will set up like explicitly the next 2D Metroid that follows it, and I'm thinking it's gonna be very much like the beginning of its own saga in a way. Even though it's ending this one, it'll be starting its own and kind of be the first game. And like you said, it's gonna be many people's first Metroid game, so it's gonna be treated as much as it is a sequel. It'll also be treated as like the first outright game in a lot of ways in the next story. I think because it'll be having I think a lot of elements we're gonna see in the next future 2D Metroids we're gonna see in this game's probably towards the later portion.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I agree. You know what? You said something there, and I want to just throw my 2 cents out. And then, Chewie, you can give me your 2 cents on it. But, man, I really think that, like, Metroid Prime 4 is going to be, like, just its own complete thing. I really do.
Yeah,
And
you're right.
I don't think it's going to be called Metroid Prime 4. I think it could be
no, I
set
do think it will.
anywhere. I think they're going to call it Metroid Prime something.
No.
But, I mean, I could
Oh
be
well,
wrong.
I mean they
But
might do it
I
to call it that, but they're definitely going to call it Metroid Prime something for
yeah,
sure.
yeah. It'll be called Metroid Prime, yes. I mean, at this point, Metroid Prime means, like, it's the first-person shooter Metroid game.
Yeah.
But, yeah, I think it's going to be... It could take place at any point in the timeline. I think you're right. I
Yeah.
don't think that we're necessarily having to have it take place between Samus Returns and Metroid Prime 3. What do you, any hopes on Metroid Prime 4 since you're here, Chewie, that you want to tell everybody before we get on out of here?
Yeah, I really hope they don't revert back to Other M. I really want them to kind of. I want to see what retro studios can do, what creative stuff they can do this time around, instead of just kind of like bringing back the nostalgia and like the same gameplay mechanics that they did for the trilogy. I want to see how they evolve the series and like if they're gonna bring back the visors, like that was like a huge thing back in the Prime series. The different ways you can actually see enemies. I wonder if that's gonna be like a thing still, or they're gonna scrap that and go with a different like concept. Like, I really want to see what creative stuff they bring to the table.
Well, fair enough. I'm hoping that we don't have to wait too much longer for Metroid Prime 4. I could realistically see it maybe being an E3 game this year, just a small little teaser, but who knows? Well, that is it. That is our hopes, our last hopes for Metroid Dread. By the next time that you listen to this show, we will have probably beaten the game.
Yeah, bro, real quick. I'm just going to say, it's kind of crazy. Like, literally, the next time we're going to be recording this show, Metroid Dread will be out and launched, and we'll have played it and likely have beaten it. I feel like we got to take that, like, and really appreciate that because, I don't know, I've been a Metroid fan for a long time. Metroid Dread's a game that is like, it's been like the holy grail of Metroid games, a game I never thought would really happen. And then I got we talked about it on the show a bunch and what we thought it could be, what happened to it, what it could have been. And that actually became a real game. And now we're literally days away from it coming out. And the next time you hear us talking, we're going to be talking about the game and what we think about it. So I don't know. I think that's really cool, really awesome. And I cannot believe it's happening. So I can't wait. I'm looking forward to the next episode where we actually get to talk about this game, like the actual game that we have actually played. Can't wait.
We like got to take a moment of silence next weekend almost. just breathe it in. Yeah, it's surreal. We'll have played and beaten Metroid Dread by the next episode of the Omega Metroid podcast that you hear. Chewie, thank you so much for coming on the show with us and talking your album, talking Metroid Dread, talking Metroid Prime, and just Metroid in general. Just one more time, tell everybody where they can grab the album and where they can check you out on any social media that you have.
Yeah, so the album's out digitally on Spotify, Apple Music, Amazon, etc. And you can follow me on Twitter, twitter.com/ChewieTunes, or on Instagram, Tuning with Chewie. That's where I'm mainly hang out most of the time. So yeah, thank you for having me here. By the way, it's amazing.
Thanks for joining us, man.
This is a blast. I'm not BSing you, man. I've listened to this album like a stupid amount of times. So thank you for finally making Samus Chill. I'm so happy that you did that. All right, well, we are going to get out of here. Like we said, next week we will have Metroid Dread impressions, a review, if you will, of the game. Maybe not a story review, but or at least a review and some early impressions and thoughts. Until then, everybody, we have 3 more sleeps to go. My God, can you believe it? We're going to get out of here, though. You can check us out over on Twitter at Omega Metroid Pod, at Spiteri316, at DaxCity_, and of course, you can like and subscribe to the Omega Metroid podcast wherever you get your podcasts. This is it, guys. Next week, we are back with Metroid Dread impressions. I can't wait. Until then.